I was pleasantly surprised when my mother-in-law, Linda, called me with a sense of victory after I returned from a week-long international trip. She mentioned something about a $30,000 windfall that we had apparently saved, which left me perplexed. I tried to think of any recent instances where I'd accumulated such a sum. As a freelance jewelry designer, I do keep a savings account for unforeseen expenses, but I definitely don't keep large amounts of cash on hand, and my bank card was safely with me. I was left perplexed about the missing $30,000 until my husband, Kevin, came home and explained it to me. Normally, no one else has the ability to withdraw such a large amount from my account, so he gave it to me, so I took it from the sideboard drawer. You guys are doing well, so it's fine, Linda said over the phone, leaving me bewildered before I could comprehend more. She quickly thanked me and hinted at counting on me for future financial help before hanging up. A misunderstanding, but after a month, Linda started calling me nonstop. I decided to ignore them at first, but the incessant ringing eventually forced me to answer more than 60 missed calls that were displayed on my phone screen. When I picked up, Linda's shrill voice filled the room, accusing me of ignoring her. Her tone suggested that she felt wronged, but to me it was just the result of her assumptions about my life as Mary, a 35-year-old busy jewelry freelancer. Early in our marriage, my designing gigs were few, and we mostly relied on Kevin's steady income. As my business grows, our roles and responsibilities have changed, but so have our challenges, such as resolving unforeseen family misunderstandings regarding money as I approach the age of 33. I am a designer who wants children but is overburdened by work. I share this with my equally busy husband, Kevin, who used to work in corporate settings but now helps me manage my expanding design business. My career as a jewelry designer had started to take off, and I needed to better organize my increasingly busy schedule. Sensing the demands of my business, my husband Kevin, who was well positioned in his company and on track for promotion, risked all by leaving his job to join me in our joint venture. By applying his management skills, we were able to secure contracts with prestigious international brands, which improved both our personal and professional lives. Success came with its own set of difficulties, especially when it came to Kevin's mother, Linda, who lived alone in the family home. She saw our lives as luxurious and frequently approached us with requests for money, saying, "You always seem to be living so lavishly, I'm jealous." She would remark, "As part of my role, attending product launches and dinners with executives was routine, but Linda saw these obligations as mere leisure." Over time, her requests became more personal, such as, "I'm going to throw a party for." In spite of my repeated denials, Linda, who was envious and frequently sarcastic, was unable to understand the nature of our expenses. "My friend, can you give me some money for it soon?" she asked once. Even though it might seem like we could easily afford such expenses, maintaining our business image was costly and full of obligations that we couldn't ignore. We weren't living in luxury. As her son, Kevin would sometimes give in to her demands, claiming that if a small amount of money kept her quiet, then it was worth it. He would also argue that it was easier to placate her than to have our work interrupted, but Linda's demands only got worse recently when she stated that she wanted a new dress for an upcoming gathering. The other day, Linda came over and nagged Kevin, asking why a two-piece suit wouldn't work. "We've been asked to buy clothes before." She claimed there might be less expensive options, but what Linda wants is definitely not inexpensive. I clarified, and she countered that it was a fancy party and she couldn't be the only one wearing old clothes. She also insisted on a matching bag, which made us frustrated with her constant demands. Kevin had previously applied for a credit card in Linda's name and told her to use it for her expenses. At first, she overspent, and he warned her even though he asked. Kevin and I are at our wits' end trying to balance the delicate act of supporting family while maintaining the integrity and sustainability of our business because she continued to spend extravagantly and failed to notify us before making significant purchases. I found an exquisite ring and couldn't resist buying it, but I regret not telling you beforehand because the bill was outrageous. Linda seemed to misunderstand the purpose of the credit card, treating it as if it were an unlimited, limited resource. She didn't understand that every purchase made would eventually need to be paid for, and since the money wasn't coming directly from her own pocket, she continued to use it freely despite knowing that it would be best to return it. Perhaps it's best to return the card, as we simply cannot cover these costs. Kevin set a spending limit on her card, which caused Linda to storm into our house one day, upset and complaining, "What the heck?" We explained that her excessive spending was putting a strain on our finances, so we had to lower her monthly limit. "It's still enough?" Kevin asked, trying to keep the peace, but you two are still dressing up and going to fancy places, so how am I doing anything different? Linda objected. Despite her misunderstandings, limiting Linda's credit card spending seemed to have occasionally eased the tension. Our activities are purely recreational. That's part of our job, Linda. If that's a job, then what I'm doing isn't any different. It's unfair that only you two get to have all the fun, she said. It's true that our work involves attending product launches and parties in opulent venues. These are professional obligations, not leisure activities. Would come visit and vent to Kevin, but life went on without any significant problems. As the year came to an end, an exciting opportunity arose when a foreign brand manufacturer approached me with a proposal to move our base overseas in order to expand our business dealings. This prospect excited me because it could potentially propel me to the level of top-tier designers, and Kevin, who was always supportive, was all for taking the leap. It's a chance we have to take, he confirmed, but the idea of moving overseas raised a new concern with Linda because of her previous behavior. It was a real concern that she might insist on moving with us abroad, which was appealing, but the idea of juggling Linda's demands in a foreign country was intimidating. That weekend, when we told Linda that we were planning to move overseas for work, she responded exactly as we had anticipated, saying, "I want to come too," assuming the move would be a never-ending vacation. Kevin tried to explain that we're going there for work and it won't be as relaxing as you think, but Linda wasn't convinced. "You're trying to deceive me, and you intend to live even more luxuriously there without me seeing." She said we're not going there permanently. We'll return after our work is finished. I tried to allay her worries, but she responded, "You're saying that, but you're planning to leave me behind. Aren't you exhausted by this?" Kevin and I were exhausted from our constant arguments, so he tried to reach a compromise. He said, "Okay, we can't take you with us, but how about we pay for a week-long trip for you?" To which Linda responded, "Really? Are you sure we'll cover your flight in a hotel, but you'll need to manage the rest?" Kevin confirmed that he was happy, at least for the time being, but the peace was short-lived because a few days later, while Kevin was busy making arrangements for the overseas move, Linda dropped by. The other day, Linda revealed that she had been reprimanded for overspending and foreseeing the difficulties of managing finances with different currency rates overseas. Kevin said, "But I want to shop over there too. Can you give me some money?" and asked, "What about the card that Kevin gave you?" I asked, knowing that Linda had a specific credit card for such expenses, and he finally took it away from me. That kind of money on hand, either I can't give you money without Kevin's approval. Can you ask him? I suggested, knowing Kevin's position completely, so it's pointless to ask him, which is why I'm asking you. She pressed, raising her voice in frustration. Linda ended up taking a 10-day trip overseas, which I assumed Kevin had somehow funded. When she returned, she called me, full of excitement, saying, "I'm back, and it was so much fun." She enthusiastically shared stories of her dining and sightseeing adventures, even though I hadn't asked. She said, "That's nice," and I tried to keep my tone neutral even though I was feeling a little overwhelmed. "Thanks to the money you saved up, I had a blast," she said. "Stored up money? What are you talking about?" I replied, perplexed and a little alarmed because I couldn't remember setting aside money for her indulgence. "I found it in the sideboard of your house drawer." She claimed to have taken $30,000, leaving me perplexed as to why such a substantial sum of money would be hidden at home, particularly not in a drawer where anyone could find it. I confronted her, saying, "I don't know what money you're talking about, but taking it from our house without permission is theft even if you're family." Linda's response was unnervingly casual, "So I'm telling you now, I used it. Consider it a post-factum report," she said without apology. "I don't know about this money. If you stole it and spent it without telling anyone, that's illegal. If it was money Kevin had saved for a significant transaction, it's even more serious." I tried to explain that there hadn't been any obvious disruptions in our business finances during her trip, and you two live so lavishly, so why can't I have a little of that? I reasoned that it wouldn't be a big deal because I was helping your parent. Displaying an entitlement complex that was difficult to understand. "You shouldn't ask your son and his wife for help after stealing someone else's money." I responded, still in shock, "I'm glad you had a wonderful trip, but I'll have to talk to Kay about this when he gets back. Kevin will understand because I'm his only mother and $30,000 isn't much to him." She assumed everything was fine, so I'll relay the message. Later that night, when Kevin got home, he appeared distressed. Mary, do you know about the money I left in the drawer? He asked urgently. 15 days ago, I took that money out of my bank account, and now it's gone. Didn't you think it was careless? I need cash immediately for an urgent payment. Do you know anything about it? Suddenly, it recalled Linda's previous call, in which she thanked me for the $30,000 and said how much fun she had. Now it was Kevin's money. Kevin called today to thank us for the $30 and to say that she had a wonderful time with it. I didn't understand what she meant until I finally pieced everything together, so it was Kevin's money. However, I asked, hey, if it wasn't for a business payment, we've been doing bank transfers for a long time, right? Why cash all of a sudden? In an attempt to comprehend the entire situation while coping with the consequences of Linda's actions. I was aware that it was Kevin's money that had vanished, but I didn't fully understand the situation. Linda had taken the money without telling us, and I needed to know why I had asked Kevin. Confused by the situation, Kevin started to piece together the backstory. After he had lowered the credit limit on Linda's card, she began secretly borrowing money from a number of sources, including credit cards she had opened without our knowledge and consumer finance cards, and when he learned of her mounting debt, he started to uncover the truth. In order to keep our business accounts clean and preserve trust with our partners, he took away all of her cards and took out cash to pay off her debts directly. This was also partially a farewell gesture because we're moving overseas and won't be around to handle such matters for her. Kevin explained that I intend to handle her debts discreetly to keep our financial records from becoming complicated. A month had gone by that point, and while I was packing for our move, Linda's frequent. When I finally answered her call, her voice was tinged with desperation. Why aren't you answering my calls? I've called so many times, she said, almost crying. I'm sorry, Linda. I've been caught up with the move. What's going on? I asked, trying to stay calm and give her a chance to explain her side. It's not just one thing, it's everything. They're asking for payments almost every day. It's too much, Linda admitted, her voice cracking under the stress. Have you tried getting in touch with Kevin regarding this? I asked in the hopes that she had asked for his assistance initially, but he seems to be blocking my calls. I can't get through to him at all. Mary, you're my only hope now. Please help me, she begged. Then I realized how complicated the situation had become. Linda's financial irresponsibility had put her in a maze of debt, and now that she was cut off from Kevin's support, she was turning to me as a last resort as we prepared to start a new life abroad. Before we could fully concentrate on our new beginnings, Linda's financial chaos loomed large and demanded immediate attention. I was surprised by Kevin's harsh treatment of his own mother. If he had used the prepared funds to directly settle Linda's debts, this upsetting situation might have been avoided. Instead, Linda was now inundated with collection letters and constant calls from consumer lenders and finance companies. It was a scene that reminded me of something from a dramatic movie. I'll speak with Kevin, but I can't promise what he'll do. A son should help his mother in need, right? Ask him for me, Linda begged at the end of our conversation. But our financial resources were already stretched thin due to our upcoming business expansion, and we couldn't afford to help her further, especially since she had misappropriated the funds intended to pay off her debts. I told Kevin about the call after his return home. He answered resignedly and exhaustedly. I had intended to resolve the matter before we left, but she wasted that opportunity herself, he said icily. Yes, the money was initially intended to pay off Linda's debts, but she spent it on a lavish vacation, leaving no room for justifications. As Linda's calls continued, I followed Kevin's example and blocked her number, even though I wanted to assist her because she was, after all, Kevin's mother there. There was nothing I could do if he had decided to distance himself from the situation. Meanwhile, the day of our move abroad was rapidly approaching, and I still had a lot of stuff to pack. In the midst of packing, I learned of another disturbing development. Linda had sold her house to pay off her debts, but it turned out that she had hidden even more obligations than we were aware of. The total amount was such that even after selling her property, she was unable to pay for anything. Kevin's voice was tinged with sorrow as he responded, Hey, our family home is gone. Are you okay with that? I asked, sensing his sadness. How can I be okay if there's nothing we can do? Losing the house where he grew up must have felt like a great loss, similar to how I felt when I lost my parents' home early in life. In the midst of these complex feelings and the difficult task of packing, we had to accept that some situations were beyond our control and concentrate on our future as we got ready to start over in a different country. The bittersweet reality of losing a family home profoundly affected me as I watched the events unfold with Kevin. Unlike my previous experiences, Kevin had lost both his emotional sanctuary and the physical structure where his earliest memories were formed, all while his mother, Linda, was still alive. The combination of loss and dislocation is an indescribable feeling, especially under such difficult situations have a profound and complex impact that goes far beyond simple property. It's about losing a piece of one's past, and the comfort of a place to return to that no longer exists. Linda, who now lives in a modest apartment, deals with the daily grind of managing her debts and working part-time, which is difficult given her age. Elderly employment opportunities are also scarce and frequently physically taxing. Although sympathy naturally arises when one sees her struggle, it is tempered by the knowledge that her situation is the direct result of her own financial imprudence. Life teaches us that actions have consequences, and Linda's case reaffirms the harsh truth that financial responsibility is crucial at any age back in our new environment, the business. Rewarding Miss Stark is a drastic change from her previous life, which was thought to be full of unchecked spending and financial freedom. It's doing better than we ever imagined. The move abroad has put our brand in the spotlight globally, attracting a flurry of offers and inquiries from all over the world. Every new email and phone call offers the possibility of growth and cooperation, which is both very exciting and very demanding. The success is thrilling, but it consumes our entire lives, leaving little time for anything else. Days turn into nights as we navigate. Kevin, who balances several responsibilities, from logistics to client management, feels the strain of time zones and cultural quirks while trying to maximize this fantastic opportunity. Despite our professional successes, our personal lives are burdened by our relentless schedules, and the goal of growing our family seems more like a far-off vision that we hope to return to when the waves of immediate demand subside. As partners in both life and business, we find ourselves wondering the As I gaze out of our apartment window at the distant landscape, the neon lights fade into the night, reflecting the blur of our everyday lives. It's a view full of promise and anonymity, a stark contrast to the familiar streets we once knew. This city is vibrant and relentless, but it also contrasts sharply with the quiet, steady life we left behind. The complexity of our new life is exciting, but also intimidating, full of innumerable tasks and choices that present challenges at every turn. As I navigate this new chapter, I frequently find myself thinking back on Linda's circumstances and the wider ramifications of our financial and familial decisions. It's a never-ending learning curve that teaches us how deeply our choices are woven into the fabric of our lives, and every choice, sacrifice, and accomplishment shapes not only our current circumstances, but also the legacy we leave behind as we construct this new phase. Throughout our lives, we continue to be aware of the fine line that separates attaining achievement from upholding the connections that shape who we are. Beyond our commercial successes,